Thank you, Sister Marjorie, for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So I always love to meet with you, because whenever we meet, you talk about your family, and you bring everything back to a very real sense of just life. And so I'm glad to have your voice in our Women of Witness series.
I'll tell my family that.
I love it. I love to hear the stories.
And that is where it starts. And we were a very ordinary family, nothing extraordinary about us. My mother was a very faith-filled woman and saw to it that we went to church, we did what we had to do, we had her as a witness of that. She lived to be 90 years old, and her faith just got stronger and stronger as a witness to me. If I ever needed anything, and I needed somebody to pray for me for a special need, I made sure to call my mother. And I try to emulate that. I'm not anywhere near that, and so with that, I always had a devotion to devotions. I was thinking about that as a child. I was an angel at the midnight mass.
Yeah.
I was in the Holy Thursday processions. I was there for whatever needed to be done. And that's really part of, in going to Holy Name of Mary school with the Marianite Sisters, that was fostered and further developed. I was one of 7 children. I had 2 older brothers, 2 younger brothers, and 2 younger sisters. So as the 3rd child and oldest daughter, I assumed some responsibilities early on when my mother did have to leave home and go out to work.
Okay.
But that was all part of helping me develop as an individual. In going to school at Holy Name, we were always becoming involved and engaged with special projects that the sisters called to our attention, particularly helping the missions.
Yeah.
And that, I think that's the rootedness of my call and response. What I saw in the sisters, I really valued and treasured. I never used those words back then, but I wanted to be like them.
And you are.
And yes, I am to a great degree. But I had that call to be of service, and to this day, I would rather be a servant than being served. Yeah. And it begins with all of that experience at home, and then and being one of 7 children, and having to help take care of the others that fed what was already in me.
Yes. Oh, well, and coming from big families, you have to share. You have to put yourself second to others more often than not, because it's all about the community. And that probably prepared you well for going into community life, which as a religious sister, you have done so much. Just many different roles.
Well, I've been there a long time, I've been in
yes, and New Orleans loves the Marianites.
I've been in community, 50 plus years.
Wow.
And that just opened all kinds of doors. But initially, I just felt like I wanted to be a teacher like the sisters, and I thought for sure that's what I was going to do the rest of my life, be a teacher. And in many ways, I still am a teacher. The classroom takes on a different shape and form in that regard. And the training that I did have, the education and all that we had to do as teachers gave us so many other skills that doing the rest of it just came naturally.
Yeah.
And of course, with the opportunity for organizations in school, like the Catholic Student Mission Crusade, CSMC, We had a very active Junior Red Cross program that brought us into nursing homes and special visits to individuals in what we call today special needs situations.
Okay. And now at Catholic Charities, you're able to put all of that to work. But you have taken care of students in the classroom. You have taken care of elderly lay people, elderly religious, and now you're taking care of some of the most vulnerable in the community through Catholic Charities and the programs. How has this bolstered your own personal faith and seeing all of these and experiencing all of this, that work that the church has done?
I do recognize that it's all the gifts that God has given me. 22 years ago, I had triple bypass surgery. When I woke up alive from that surgery, I knew I wasn't gone because God had something more for me to do. Just didn't know what it was. And at that time, open heart surgery, the doctors would say, you got another 10 years. It bothered me, 10 years. So I took those 10 years and actively participated. And then what after the 10 years? And then I just know that every day that I wake up, the Lord has something special for me to do. I don't always know what it might be. But as you said, in Catholic Charities, I have the opportunity to exercise the many gifts and use those gifts. And I feel like everything that I've done before coming to Catholic Charities helped me to do better what Catholic Charities calls me to do. And yes, it is the most vulnerable of people that we serve. And I'm doing things that I never thought I would ever have to do or look to do. But I do seek each day, before I go to bed, Lord, if you give me another day, I do have some things that I want to do for you, but help me to know what you want me to do today. That's the best that I can do.
That's a beautiful prayer. Because we're never guaranteed anything. And living in that moment, living in the present, asking God each moment what we can do for him and bring about his kingdom.
Just this past week in one of the readings for daily Mass, the phrase, do not lose what God gives to us. And I've pondered that a lot. You know how we, in speaking a language, if you don't use it, you lose it. Mm-hmm. I liken that if we don't use the gifts that God has given us, we lose so many opportunities. And that's wrong. We should not spend time letting those go idly by, and relying on that belief that what needs to be done, I will be able to do. And as I get older and work with more younger and younger people, oh, sister, how do you keep going? The grace of God. Mm-hmm. And I truly mean that. It's just not pietistical.
I say that
words.
When people ask me about how many kids are you going to have? Or how do you do it with all these kids? The grace of God and a lot of prayer.
Yeah. And I'm so fortunate and blessed. And when I'm this much distance away from there go I, save the grace of God. It could have been so different. Mm-hmm. And so, I can't not do. When am I going to retire? We don't talk about retirement in the congregation.
I was going to say, that's not a word that happens in religious life.
I'm often asked that. You just transition from one particular aspect of ministry to another. For me, that's privileged. I am privileged to be able to serve in the congregation of the Marianites. The Marianites allow me to continue to do the work of the church. and there's enough work in the church for us to do. So I feel very, very privileged, and want to take advantage of that privilege for as long as I can.
And I think you have, for many, even in the church, they don't see a religious sister often. It's not as commonplace as it once was. And for many of the people that you meet, you are their experience of a religious woman. And I think you're a very good example and a very beautiful witness.
Thank you.
Of that.
And that's a sadness. I do have that sadness that there are not enough of us still active, engaged to attract others to respond to the call. But there are so many other opportunities for women outside of being religious consecration women to be able to work in a church today. It didn't start out that way a long time ago.
No, religious women opened those doors for us.
Correct.
Yes. Religious women opened doors for women like me to be able to work in ministry, and for women to be able, lay women to be able to teach in schools. I mean, I think we forget the debt of gratitude we have to religious women, and not just for opening doors for us, but for continuing so many of the legacies and the traditions that are the church. Yes. So I'm grateful.
Thank you, as I am.
I'm grateful. Yes. And I'm grateful for you taking the time out of your schedule to sit down with me and have this conversation so that others can get to know you and know that those experiences are available in the church.
Something else that's been very helpful to me is I had the good fortune, some 20 plus years ago, to meet up with a group of lay women, and we formed a prayer group. It was through the Cursillo movement, but I continue to meet regularly with those ladies, and the opportunity to form that sisterhood.
Yeah.
And we bear it. They support me and encourage me, and I in turn support and encourage them. But that bond has really solidified as well the whole call to prayer and action. Yeah. And I'm challenged by them, but I'm edified and supported by them as well. So it's a great mutual sharing of gifts and giftedness and prayers.
And that is important to have those people you can go to and pray with. It's important to have your social circles and your professional circles, but having that prayer support base and knowing that it exists.
Yes.
Especially for women and working in that little bit of community aspect that carries over.
I just shared with a lady just before coming here. We were talking about challenges, and someone passed along to me, and I think we can, sum it all up. The will of God will not take me to any place where the grace of God will not sustain me.
Amen. Amen. I think that's beautiful. That's a good thought, a happy thought, and an emboldening thought as we move forward. So thank you, Sister Marjorie, for sitting down with me today and being a woman of witness.
Thank you, Sarah.